Hey, good evening, friends. Dennis LaRue here with your hashtag steeltoesrequired quote of the week, episode number 35. And for those of you that have joined me from the beginning, thank you. I hope this has been a blessing to you. I hope this has been encouragement. I hope you've grown tremendously in these 35 weeks that we've been together. For those of you just joining, the reason this is called Steel Toes is because each week I share a quote that's impacted my life in some way, shape, or form throughout my years. Share a little bit of how that quote has impacted my life. And also, it's going to be a quote that's going to step on your toes. It's going to challenge you. It's going to poke. It's going to prod you. It's going to get you uncomfortable. And when you are uncomfortable, you're in a position of growth. So I'm glad you're here as well. And this week's quote comes from a man that has impacted my life in a way as far as my faith goes. I'm a person of faith, and I've read a lot of books regarding growing my faith. This particular man was, before becoming a author and pastor, was a doctor. So he was a physician to the Queen in England, and then became a physician of the soul. His name is Dr. Martyn Lloyd-Jones. Hi, Mom. Glad you're here. And Dr. Martyn Lloyd-Jones unfortunately passed in 1980, but his books have just been very important in my life. One book I highly recommend that you get your hands on is called Studies in the Sermon on the Mount. It is rich. It is thick. It was originally published in 2 volumes, now condensed into 1. And I highly recommend you get it because that will be a study that will change your life. No question. But anyway, let's get to our quote. And actually, our quote from the doctor is a question. But when you hear this question, it's going to get you thinking. Because every time I've read this question, it gets me thinking. So here it comes. Here comes the quote. And he says this, Dr. Martyn Lloyd-Jones asks us this question. He says, have you realized that most unhappiness in life is due to the fact that you are listening to yourself instead of talking to yourself? Let that sink in for a second. Now I'm going to read it again. Have you realized that most unhappiness in your life is due to the fact that you're listening to yourself instead of talking to yourself? So here it is. It's Sunday night. You're getting ready. You're winding down your evening. Maybe some of you are watching TV or getting things together in preparation for work tomorrow. You get everything ready. Get everything situated. Get that coffee pot timed and ready so when you wake up in the morning, you've got fresh, hot coffee ready for you. Maybe you've got your breakfast set up where all you got to do is put it together real fast. Lunch is lined up. You've got all of that lined up for you. You crawl into bed and you sleep. Maybe you dream, maybe you don't. But then it happens. You hear it loud and clear. You hear that alarm. Maybe it's an old-fashioned alarm on your clock. Maybe it's music from your iPhone. Whatever it is that you use to wake you up has just gone off. What are you thinking? What are those first thoughts as you're getting up, getting ready for your Monday morning? Hey, Jocelyn, so glad you're here. So there it is. You've awakened Monday morning. What are those first thoughts? Maybe it's this. Maybe it's, oh my, it's time to get up. For those of you that like to work out before you go to work, maybe exercise, you're thinking, oh, got to get up and exercise. Man, that alarm went off too soon. Well, I could use another 15 minutes. Maybe you're thinking, oh, I don't want to get up. What are those thoughts? What are those first thoughts that cross your mind? What are you thinking? Now, what do you say to yourself when you wake up on Monday morning, when those thoughts attack you? Do you keep those thoughts to yourself and just let them give you what the movie Office Space said? Does it give you a case of the Mondays where you hate Mondays? You hate going to work. Oh, I got to battle traffic. Oh, the coffee pot didn't go off this morning. I'm set. Or even worse, you misset your alarm clock. And instead of waking up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., it was 5 p.m., 6 p.m., or 7 p.m. you set your alarm, and your alarm didn't even go off. And now you're going off because you're late. What are those thoughts going through your mind? And then what do you say to yourself? Because that's what our quote is. For those that are just joining Jeanette, here's the quote again. It's from Dr. Martyn Lloyd-Jones, and he said this. He asked a question. He said, have you realized that most unhappiness in your life is due to the fact that you're listening to yourself instead of talking to yourself? So how do you handle those moments waking up tomorrow morning? Are you stuck in your head, stuck in those negative thoughts? Or are you speaking to yourself and are you getting up? Are you getting after it? Are you attacking the day? Are you seizing the day or are you trying to sleep the day? What are your thoughts? Because you see, when you wake up, it's not as if you've had a conversation with anybody. It's not as if those thoughts are just right there and they're ready. And they're ready to attack the minute you're awake. You are bombarded. Positive thoughts, negative thoughts, all kinds of thoughts. But usually on Mondays, for the mass majority of people, it's negative thoughts because you got to get up, you got to go to work. You just enjoyed 2 days off or 1 day off. And now you've got to go back at it. So, the point the doctor is making here is, are you taking control of your thoughts with your words? There are times when you need to speak to yourself. I'll confess right now, I do it. I got to speak to myself. And there's many times when I don't speak to myself, my thoughts, unfortunately, I wish they were all positive and all happy, slappy, and constantly motivating and encouraging. But you know what? There are times they are not. And if I don't address them, and if I allow them to keep speaking, they just drain you. I'm reminded of a movie that I saw years ago. It's about the life of Pistol Pete Maravich. Now, I don't know how true the whole movie is about everything about Pistol Pete Maravich, the NBA basketball player. But there was a scene in the movie where he's at a soda fountain, and he's got his basketball, and a bet is made that he can spin that basketball on his finger for an entire hour. He takes the bet. And he starts doing it. And as they show that hour pass in the movie, the guys that made the bet are in his ear, whispering and saying, "Oh, you can't do it. It's going to fall. It's going to drop. You can't handle it. You're not good enough. You're just a showboat." And all kinds of negativity is spoken to him in that moment as he's concentrating, spinning the ball. And there's a moment where he says after a sip of soda, that's right, he's sipping soda while spinning a basketball on his finger. And he says, I can't. And and his enemies are getting excited that he can't do it. He's going to quit. He's not going to make the bet. And then he looks up and he says, I just can't stop. And he keeps spinning. He's talking to himself. He ends up winning the bet and spins the ball for an hour. But the point of it is this, is Pete spoke the thoughts that were being spoken to him from others, and even in entering his own mind in that moment, he spoke out against them, and he said that he wouldn't stop. What about you? What about you? What are those thoughts in your head that are telling you to stop? Maybe it's running your business, pursuing your dream, pursuing a calling. What are those things, what are those thoughts in your head when you wake up that are telling you, quit, stop, you can't do it, you can't make it, there's not enough time, you're going to be doing this all day, just give up, go do something else, or you know what, just stay in bed. The covers are nice. They're comfy. Just stay here. Let the fan blow on you all day. It's hot here in Texas. What do you say in those moments? Or do you say anything? What's the truth in that moment? Speak those words of truth to yourself. Speak them. For instance, my friend Ray Popham posted this today and I loved it. And I'm just going to borrow a bit of what he said. He said, tell the impossible, I'm possible. Tell the impossible thoughts, the impossible dreams, that I'm possible. Say it out loud and believe it in that moment. I was doing some reminiscing this week, found some interesting information about my days running cross country in high school, and it got me thinking some thoughts and stories. And I remember the day I beat a guy for the very first time in the mile. He was a top runner. He had the district record in the mile. And the thoughts in my head and the thoughts from all my friends were, you can't beat him. You've never run that fast. You can't do it. But I said, and I turned, instead of saying, you know what, you're right. All the data says I can't do it. But I said, I'm going to beat him today. And guess what? I didn't run no record time, but I beat him. So there it is. What is that for you? What is that for you today? This week? You're up against it. You see, we are challenged every day with negativity. That's right. It would be so awesome if every day we were always happy and joyful and positive, but that's not reality. You're faced with those moments where you're with yourself, thinking, introspective, and doubt creeps up in your mind. Maybe it's in the form of facts and figures. Remember, it's not going to be obvious. The negativity that pops up in your mind, sometimes it's very clear and very obvious, but there's other times when you're pursuing your dream, to get you distracted and off guard, it's going to be subtle. It's going to be chocolate-covered death. It looks sweet and tasty, but inside it's deadly. And that's what one of those thoughts are, if you entertain it and allow it to creep in unless you speak to it. So what does that look like for you? Be aware. Be aware and speak the truth of what your dream is. Speak the truth of what your actions are. And in those moments where the thoughts are negative, speak the opposite. My son was saying this week, Alex and I were talking, and he says, I'm going to speak it into existence, Dad. I love it. And he's learning from that. I'm going to speak it into existence. That's your action step for you this week. When those thoughts, those negative thoughts pop in your head, instead of just listening to them, speak the positive into existence. Speak that truth of the direction you're going, the dreams, into existence. That's your action step for this week. And so again, here's our quote. Have you realized that most unhappiness in your life is due to the fact that you are listening to yourself instead of speaking to yourself? So speak to yourself this week. Speak those words into existence because it's active. You may be passive in listening, but you got to be active in speaking and then take action moving forward. Create that positive momentum in your life, in your business, in your families this week. And so, as we wrap this session up, tie it in a bow, we close out with my very favorite, the blessing. And so I pray the blessing of bread, that you know no hunger. I pray the blessing of salt, that your life would have flavor and that you would be flavorful in other people's lives. I pray the blessing of wine, that joy and prosperity would be yours, and that the love of God would be your portion this day and forevermore. Guys, thank you so much for joining me this week. Please take a moment. If this added value to you, please just take a moment and share this with your friends and for those people that you know that could use this message this week. Blessings to you, my friends. We'll see you next Sunday. Same time, same place, right here. Take care. Bye for now.